Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you caught my 1-minute update video from the other day, then you're probably aware that Flsun sent me one of their brand new high-speed Delta printers to try out. They sent me one of their just released S1 Pro machines. I have to say, so far it looks like they have fixed so many of the issues that commonly plague the Delta configuration. The last Delta machine that I ran was a CME CNC Rostock V2 that I purchased with my very own real money about 2 years before cancer. It was okay at the time, but 3D printing was an entirely different universe than what it is today. The same way Bamboo set the new standard for what Cartesian Core XY machines should be, at first appearance, it looks like Flsun has done the same with what a Delta machine should be. Of course, I only have about a week on this machine, so I have no real idea of how it's going to age once it gets a bunch of time on it. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but understand that these are my words, and other than them sending me a unit to review and a couple rolls of high-speed PLA, I'm not being paid for this review. They don't even get a first look at this video. So take this as nothing more than my opinion as of today, possibly subject to change as I get more time on this printer. So let me go over a few things that I like about this machine. Having all 3-axis on linear bearings is such an improvement to the way that Deltas used to move. Second, closed-loop hybrid servo stepper motors are awesome. They've kind of become the new standard with how Cartesian, Core XY, even bedslinger machines move now. And it's good to see that this motor technology has been adopted here as well. While I'm still on the motion system, the way they've chosen to park the effector is awesome. They're using 3 of these little reusable clips to pinch the belt onto itself, effectively immobilizing the hot end. No more need to invert the stage if you're going to move the machine. If you end up picking one of these up, definitely be sure to save the clips. Now onto the assembly. This machine comes 95% assembled. All you need to do is install the display and glass doors. Side note, this display is used with both the S1 and S1 Pro. However, they are wired differently. On the back of the display, there are 3 USB-C sockets labeled 1, 2, and 3, along with a flat Molex plug. The S1 Pro uses USB 2 and 3 and the Molex, leaving the number 1 slot empty. Everything is very well labeled. Just know that no, you aren't missing the number 1 USB cord, and there's no need to take the cover panel off to dig around looking for a cord that doesn't exist, only to later spend way too much time putting it back together, dropping one of the tiny screws on the floor just to spend about 10 minutes looking for it, eventually sweeping the entire area with a magnet, only to find that it rolled in the exact opposite direction than what you were sure that it sounded like it did. One thing that is cool about the assembly, you only need 2 Allen wrenches to get everything together so you can start printing. Of course, the machine comes loaded with several curated and optimized files for you to try out. As you'd expect, there is the obligatory benchy. This benchy isn't the most impressive that I've seen, but what is impressive is that it manages to print one out in 7 minutes 58 seconds. This thing flat moves. I've printed 3 or 4 of these just to show the speed to several people that have come by the shop. Of course, speed is awesome, but if it isn't accurate, it doesn't matter. So to check the accuracy, I printed an array of calibration cats all oriented with tails in at different radiuses from the center point. Each of them are within a couple thousandths of each other, which is awesome considering that a delta calculates all of its motion in degrees, minutes, and seconds instead of relative distance traveled. The difficulty with getting accurate prints with this kind of machine is that the farther you are printing from the center point of the build plate, the larger the correction for the arc that the extruder travels. With a Cartesian machine, 1 inch worth of motion on the axis equals 1 inch of motion on the print. Whereas on a delta, an inch of linear motion on the slide has a different print value depending upon the position of the other 2 slides and the relative distance from the center point of the build platform. As you can imagine, any slop on the linkage or carriage makes for some really wobbly prints. That's why I say I have no idea how this machine is actually going to age. If everything stays tight, you should have a super fast machine. If not, it'll be all over the place. To give you a real-world idea of the difference in print times that you can get with the Delta configuration, here is the current iteration of my forearm socket. Rather than doing everything in plasticity, I started off by scanning my forearm, then in Mesh Mixer, plane cutting the ends and extruding the normal 3mm to make a shell. From there, I printed the shell and trimmed the print to the desired profile. The isogrid here is EVA foam that I cut out using light burn and my Creality Falcon laser. After the grid was cut out, I superglued it into position on the shell and smoothed out all the edges. Once I was happy with the overall profile, I rescanned the socket, cleaned everything up in Mesh Mixer, and sliced it up. For the prototype, I lowered the infill to 65% with only 4 walls and auto tree supports. So let's talk about the times. If you were to print this model on my Creality K2, I'm looking at 7 hours, 10 minutes. On the Bamboo X1 Carbon, 7 hours, 26. On the S1 Pro, 4 hours, 39 minutes. Because of the kinematics of the machine, you definitely want to turn the Z-hop feature on and set it somewhere around 1mm. This setting lives in the Advanced Filament tab under Setting Override. Turning this feature on should definitely help with the hot end overly rubbing on or knocking loose your print from the build plate. This machine comes with a hardened steel nozzle, so you should be able to run carbon fiber and nylon filaments if you're into printing something a little more exotic. That's where this forearm cuff will eventually go material-wise, but for right now, while I'm still figuring out the final shape and load points, I'll continue to print it in ABS. I'll be sure to update you with how it prints in nylon carbon fiber once the design gets there. Of course, no review would be complete without talking about the issues. Keep in mind, I only have just shy of 2 rolls of filament through this machine, 1 roll of PLA, and most of a roll of ABS. As expected, the PLA ran just fine. The only issues I had with it was related to the Z-hop not being initially enabled on the slicer. So, depending upon where the model was placed on the build platform, the hot end would sometimes knock the print loose from the supports. But once I turned the Z-hop on and added 1mm to the motion, it seems to have corrected the issue. Next was bed adhesion. I don't know if it's because I haven't fully seasoned this build plate with glue stick or if I had the model positioned between the zones of the bed heater. Remember, this machine has a segmented bed heater, so it only heats up the areas that are actually being printed on rather than the entire build plate. I've had a couple prints, primarily in ABS, that I've had to interrupt because a corner or section had peeled up and the extruder was rubbing on it. If I continue to have this as an issue, I'll try some Magic Goo or nanopolymer and see if that corrects the issue. Third thing isn't really an issue, but more of a convenience thing that I've really started to embrace more as more printers start to incorporate as part of their standard equipment. And that would be being able to remote print from your phone via an app. I used to be in the camp of, I don't really need it. But once I started to really embrace the feature with my Creality machines, I started to use it pretty much on the regular anytime I had something going on my Bamboo. And now I even started using the Prusa app with my XL if I leave it running overnight. Even though it doesn't have a built-in camera, you can still get an idea of how the machine's running or if it has an issue. I asked my Flsun rep about the possibility of a phone app, and they said they're working on it and that something should be released pretty soon. So here's hoping. Next, the slicer. Right now they're using a reskinned version of Orca, which is fine. I like Orca. I just hate having a pile of printer-specific slicers rather than being able to use just one that you've put the time into to tune for your specific needs and the filament that you're running. Of course, given time, this should be corrected once the printer is officially released and an S1 Pro profile is incorporated into official Orca. So, the takeaway. Am I going to get rid of all my other printers in favor of the S1 Pro? Nope. But has it earned a for now permanent position in the studio? Yeah, I think it has. It's really fast and pretty fun to watch. It'll be better once it gets a phone app, and I'll let you know how it ages as I get more material through it. I really appreciate the support you guys give me in the comments section. It helps keep me motivated to continue to put in the time to create these videos. Also, if you personally know any amputee that has the same gesticulation that I do, and they're interested in trying out my gear, I still have a couple of slots available. I am starting to put the first batch of kits together now and hopefully be sending them out by the end of the year. Let me know what you think about the new forearm cuff. Also, let me know if you're Delta curious or if you're strictly a Core XY bed slinger type person in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Doing out? Hey, doing out? Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Richard. Such a good kitty.